Welcome to the Back Row Fantasy Show with your hosts Jeremy Barker and Aaron Arms.
Welcome to the Back Row Fantasy Show. This is a Barkerless show today, so it's me in the middle this time hosting. Arms in the middle. Got Lambert to my left.
Hey.
And Hux to my right.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, another day in paradise. So it's going to be a little bit different because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Barker pretty much does, runs the whole thing, soundboard, etc. So if it's clunky, I apologize. First off, I want to thank our listeners for the recent ratings and reviews. I appreciate everything on that. If you've yet to do so, please get out there. Give us a like get on our Facebook page, Instagram, etc. Give us a rating, give us a review. That's what helps us grow. So, doesn't matter your podcast player, you can do so. I know iTunes is a little clunky. Sometimes you got to log onto a computer to actually do the rating and review. So now that we've got that out of the way, guys, let's talk about that game last night. The Patriots rolled up the Giants, which kind of is expected. I mean, first and foremost, is this the best Patriots defense we've ever seen?
I don't know about the best, but it's one of the better ones for sure. Yeah, recent memory.
They've definitely looked impressive.
I mean, we're talking about a team that I think has allowed, one touchdown in the air this year. One. That is,
seems unreal in today's NFL.
That's insane. I mean, they've
48 points in 6 games. That's all they've allowed off. 48 points.
Wow. I mean, that is insane. So, as far as with the Giants, the stat line, obviously Golden Tate looks like Golden Tate again. Gets 9 targets, six receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. You guys buying on Golden Tate right now?
He was the only weapon last night.
Okay.
Last night. But once they get Shepard back, get
Saquon,
Ingram, once they come back, I think it'll be more spread out. I like Golden Tate, though. I think he's going to be a target monster like he normally is.
Okay.
I'd like to see that offense when they all are together because I think it could be a pretty good offense.
And not playing the Patriots.
Well, yeah.
I mean, overall, I will say, obviously Daniel Jones looked, pretty rough last night, 3 interceptions. But, his QBR was 9.2, which is 9.2 higher than Baker Mayfield last week, by the way. Horrible.
Wow.
I mean, that is horrible. Now, I don't know what Baker's was, but I know it was bad. But, listen, there's a lot to be excited about skill position there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're young. Tate's not the youngest, but the rest of the guys, they're young. They definitely got a lot of potential.
Overall, I will say Danny Dimes has made me eat a little bit of crow this year. He doesn't look like the best quarterback in the league. He's no Gardner Minshew, but Danny Dimes looks pretty solid. So for me, he's a target. I'd like to acquire him in some leagues. I don't think he's going to be like rookie of the year level type quarterback, anything like that. But I would like to have some future Danny Dimes shares.
Absolutely. Plus, it's his rookie year, so he's only going to continue to get better, I think.
In theory.
And like you said, the weapons
Baker
there.
Mayfield.
Well, yeah, that's true. But, Baker's got a whole different set of issues with that cardboard line that they've got.
Yeah, I think the offensive line's the big key there for Cleveland.
And speaking of offensive line, that is one thing that you can honestly say about the Patriots. I don't think in the past 100 years that Tom Brady's been in the league that they've had an offensive line that rated outside the top 5 in the NFL.
Yeah, I didn't really watch much of the game last night, but I'm surprised to see that he got sacked 3 times last night.
Yeah, that's insane.
A lot. But yeah, he doesn't get touched hardly ever.
The biggest success for Tom Brady, it's his ability to read quick and release quick. All last year, it's like, all right, who we sitting on defense? Whatever defensive end is playing against Tom Brady. That's what it always amounted out to be. But this team looks, they look hard to beat. I think they look like they can be beat, but it's going to be a close game. And honestly, it's going to require you to outcoach Bill Belichick, and there's nobody out there able to do it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
You've got to outscore a team that, has running backs that are capable across the board. Sony Michel, apparently they, hate him, so they give Brandon Bolden the touchdown.
That's just Bill Belichick hates your fantasy
He
teams.
does. Bill Belichick. The most maddening thing has always been which Patriot running back to start, because you're not right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're not right.
Yep. It's like being married.
Julian Edelman does Julian Edelman things. Target monster, 15 targets last night, 113 yards, 9 receptions. I mean, and then of course James White actually finally had a decent contribution to your fantasy team with 9 receptions for 46 yards. So, you think White's emerging again?
Did he ever go anywhere? I mean, in PPR formats anyway.
In PPR, he struggled for a few weeks.
Yeah.
He was kind of like you put him in and you're like, what? Like 2 receptions? What are you doing, James White? This isn't you. This is not why you're, my flex play. So, couple of little news and notes. Jay Ajayi said he's ready to start working out for teams. Anyone care?
Nope.
Anyone care?
No, I don't care, but he'll have some interest. He'll get picked up by somebody.
But
Giants could probably use him.
for what, another week?
I was gonna
Whenever
say Saquon will be back in a week or two.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley was part of the Universal Soldier Project. I don't know if you knew this or not.
Right.
The dude's not human. That's not a real person out there. That is some sort of demigod. I mean, he's related to Maui from Moana. I mean, he's just a different type of human. He's been cutting, like, dude's got a high ankle sprain, showing off 40-inch vertical still. Works out 2-3 weeks into this. I think he's going to be back on the field sooner rather than later. I do hope that they're smart about it and they're cautious in bringing him back. You don't want to, take a risk of, re-injury or possibly, making it a more serious injury than it is. So, yeah. Zay Jones to Oakland. So, in theory, a lot of people had some hype on Zay Jones going into the season, thinking that he's going to take the next step forward for Buffalo. So, he goes to Oakland for a 5th. Thoughts on that?
Next year, a 2021 5th.
Right. It's not even, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's that play? I don't understand that play.
I think Buffalo was just looking to get something out of him. He fell down the depth chart.
Who was the guy that played for them last week? He didn't put up amazing stats, but he did all right. Can't remember his
Buffalo?
name. Yeah, for Buffalo.
I'm not sure, but let me ask one of you. I'm sure is looking that up. Any fantasy value to Zay Jones now? He should, in theory, walk in de facto number 2 in Oakland.
Oh yeah.
You gotta have some value, yeah.
So, do you even trust him as a number 3, a wide receiver 3, or is he worth the flyer?
Maybe not this week, but I would try.
Thank you. It's a bye week. So Oakland guaranteed to not lose this week. Oh, Duke Williams.
Duke Williams.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he's a rookie.
Right.
Yeah.
First year out of Auburn. Is that right? Clemson, maybe one of those.
I don't know. Don't know. It took a lot of pride in knowing where everybody went to college. Right now, I'm kind of off that way.
But I think he played well enough that they felt good letting Zay go.
So, one thing I can say about this year is I feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, whenever you look at who's at the top of some of these the position groups, it's mind-blowing. You've got the big guys, at the top right now at quarterback and points per game. You got Russell Wilson, Mahomes, Watson. Then Lamar Jackson at number 4 points per game. Obviously, his legs are helping you out, but the grand scheme of things, he's not exactly, he's not rushing 100 yards a game. He's getting you, 60, 70 yards a game. 308 yards on the ground so far this year. Then, Matt Ryan, he was, top tier last year. Then you got Dak. Obviously, Dak adds a little bit to the ground, or with his ground game. Stafford, Brady, Wentz, and Kyler Murray's at 11. But what kind of floors me more is Jared Goff is all the way down at 14, just below Gardner Minshew. Andy Dalton is above Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' point per game is 20th. The guys right above him: Case Keenum, Josh Allen, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton.
Goff being that low kind of surprises me just for the simple fact of how many times they've had to throw the ball. He's averaging like 44 attempts a game, and him being that low is kind of crazy to me.
Another quarterback that's low, and it's not that I really projected him to be a star, but Jimmy Garoppolo, for as good as they're doing, kind of shocks me He's quarterback 21 right now.
Yeah, it's been more about the defense and the run game there.
He's not had to do a whole lot.
Just won football games.
He's the new Alex Smith.
My favorite stat is whenever you sort by points per game, the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. Baker Mayfield's name does not appear. Baker Mayfield points per game is the 32nd quarterback, with stars above him
You mean 33?
or 33rd. Yes, stars above him like Chase Daniel and Joe Flacco. You know, I mean,
And a game or two from Eli Manning.
Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, yeah. I mean, these guys are. What is going on with Baker Mayfield? Is the line? I know the line's bad,
Oh, it's bad.
and this is one thing. I mean, I know I've talked about it before on the show last year a lot. You got to address the offensive line. I mean, that should be you build from the inside out.
They had a solid line last year.
They let a lot of pieces go.
Yeah.
A couple of them got hurt.
Who was that they traded? Was Zeitler? Zeitler.
Yep.
Yeah, he was one of the best.
Well, I know it wasn't last year, but they let Mack go
Yeah,
to
a
the
couple years ago,
Falcons
yeah.
too. I mean, that was a solid centerpiece.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I still wouldn't be shocked. I'm surprised it hasn't happened, but I still wouldn't be shocked if they went and traded for Trent Williams from Washington. But I'm just surprised it hasn't happened yet.
So, it's flooring me with like I said, the points per game, how the disparity is, the regression of Baker Mayfield, and that's just a quarterback. I mean, whenever we move over to running back, obviously you got the star at the top, Christian McCaffrey. Number 2, Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I mean, that'll go down some.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you've got him now, trade him. I personally, if I had Eckler week 3, I know he was winning you weeks, but you knew Melvin Gordon was going to be back at some point during the season. You got to trade him. I believe the whole Austin Eckler, you know, he lost his value too quickly by Melvin Gordon returning a little bit early. Do you guys? I mean, are you?
The thing with Eckler was he put up points last year, even with MG3 there. So I mean, in a PPR format, I don't mind hanging on
What
to
did he have,
him.
like 15 catches last week?
Yeah, he had some insane amount of targets too.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, he's got 39 receptions on the year. I
He
mean,
had 15 last week with 16 targets.
oh my
So,
gosh.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's crazy there. But, I mean, obviously he's not going to get 15 catches every week.
So points per game, once again, CMC, then Eckler, Dalvin Cook. I know I'm shocked with how great he's doing. There's only, I believe, 3 running backs this year who are averaging over 100 yards a game. That's McCaffrey, Cook, and Fournette, which that's just shocking to me. That blows my mind.
Minnesota's just made a emphasis around the run. It's just the new coordinator's style. So, and his health obviously is the biggest factor there.
Number 4, we've got Aaron Jones. You know, a lot of the reason why he got boosted, that big 4 touchdown week last week that I ran up against in like 2-3 leagues is ridiculous.
I had him on the bench in one of my leagues, so that hurt.
Then, of course, Nick Chubb. I think most of us in this room felt like Nick Chubb had some, was going to ascend towards the top this year. Kamara at 6. He's 3 points behind Chubb. David Johnson putting together an okay year on a not-so-good team. Fournette in the top 10 at 8. Mark Ingram, he's had, I think, a 3-touchdown week to start the season, so he's sitting there at 9, and then Le'Veon Bell at 10. The killer is, it just seems, it's odd to me that some of the players, your Ezekiel Elliott's what you picked first, second, or third. He's sitting there at running back 11. Saquon Barkley, obviously the injury, but he's at running back 15. James Conner all the way down at running back 20. I mean, man, it's almost like if you paid the premium to get a running back first, second, or third, outside of Kamara or Christian McCaffrey, you're screwed.
Where's Joe Mixon at? I mean, people predicted a lot of things out of him this year, and he's way down there. Just having a bad year.
Points per game, Joe Mixon is so bad he didn't make the top 32.
That's another bad offensive line situation. Like, I don't know how Andy Dalton has as many points as he does either.
Joe Mixon is running
Just
back
playing from
30,
behind, I believe. He's just having to throw the ball.
Running back 37. Players right behind Joe Mixon include Carlos Hyde, Peyton Barber, and Ronald Jones. Joe, get it together. But once again, offensive line. Your line is bad.
Yeah.
You can't win.
Oh, Mixon's talented as is all get out.
I'll be honestly say Mixon is without a doubt in the top 10 in talent in the league. Unfortunately, he has nobody to block for him.
If you're in a dynasty league, though, I'd go get him. I'd try and get him at least for next year.
Frustrated owner, probably get him for.
I own him, and I'm frustrated.
Trade him to me.
No, I'm good.
So here's the one that really has some disparity from what you expected. I mean, who's number one receiver going into this year?
Hopkins.
Hopkins.
Or Adams.
Hopkins, Adams, Thomas. One of those three. All right. I'm a big Thomas guy. Thomas would have been the right pick because he's number 3. The other ones are on down the list. Number one receiver right now, points per game and full point PPR. Yes, is Chris Godwin. Then Cooper Kupp. Then Michael Thomas, which is right. I mean, 0.1 points behind Cooper Kupp. Then Amari Cooper's putting together a good year. Then you got DJ Chark. I mean, in your top 5, you have one guy you expected to be there. Number 6, Keenan Allen. Number 7, Michael Gallup. What?
2 Cowboys in the top 7.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, and then T.Y. Hilton at 8. I mean, you expect that with Andrew Luck. You don't expect it with Jacoby Brissett. Julio Jones at 9. Obviously, you always expect him to be there. Deshaun Jackson sitting at number 10. This is not a list I'm expecting those names to be at the top of. We just named, in your top 10, we named like 5 wide receiver 2s.
Yeah.
Guys that you're looking at as wide receiver 2 whenever you're drafting.
I mean, when they were drafted, I mean, a lot of people expected the ascension of Chris Godwin.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe not quite what he's doing so far this year, but
I mean, is he truly the wide receiver down in Tampa Bay?
I don't know.
mean, I honestly think both of them are. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go. I mean, I know Evans had a bad, obviously no catches last week, but they're gonna get both of them the ball. That's just how their offense is gonna run. And
The way their offense is set up.
yeah, it's just how it is. They don't have a run game.
So you've got Terry McLaurin at 15. A lot of people liked him. Here's one that's I'm struggling with. Adam Thielen at wide receiver 18 points per game.
Well, where's Diggs? I'm struggling more with where Diggs is than Thielen.
I mean,
Yeah,
Thielen through the first half of the season was number 1 last year.
Well, yeah, but he fell off towards the end too.
But
you still didn't expect this big
Well, the
drop
offense
for
is
Diggs.
completely different than it was last year.
Right.
I know, but the premium you had to pay to get these guys, once again, this is where I feel like I have no clue what the hell I'm doing. You know what I mean?
It's definitely not how we drew it up.
It's a weird year.
Yeah, and I mean, Odell Beckham Jr., points per game, wide receiver 45. He is a wide receiver 3. And he had a 3-touchdown week, I believe, at some point this season. That is just insanity to me. I'm so far down. I've still not found Diggs, and I mean I am low on the list. So yeah, I mean Diggs obviously struggling. I do think that one thing I will say about
But a lot of that's
Thielen.
Cousins
Yeah.
struggling too.
One thing I will say about Thielen is I do think that he's going to the squeaky wheel. He's going to get his grease now. I think he's showed a little bit. They're going to try to get him the ball a little bit more like they did last week. Just an incredibly strange season to me so far. I mean, obviously the cream will rise, right? The best of the best at the end of the season is going to be right there with the best. So don't panic yet. Your season's not over. I mean, hell, in the Brill, I think I set the scoring record last week. I was 0-4. I'm now 1-4 because last week. I mean, it's insanity. So, one more thing before we move on to our starts and sits. Just want to speak something we talk about quite often on the show, just a little bit of trade etiquette. So, if you're going to make a trade, Michael Bauer, Dynasty Rewind, if you're going to make a trade, I feel like we should at least have a trade that is counterable. I was offered in the Brill by one of the owners. This would be Bauer.
Well, now I do want to step in here. You're calling a guy out. Is that something you guys are okay with? I saw this question posted on Twitter. Are you okay? I mean, if you just put somebody on blast for their terrible trade offers.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
But
Obviously.
do you do it? I mean, because that, to me, so if somebody's going to put a bad trade, as someone who sends bad trade offers, if someone's putting those bad trade offers out there and just talking shit about you, that's going to make me not want to deal with that person.
Okay, but let me. Here's how I would have approached it. If you are going to make a trade and say, can we? I would go with, can we build something around this? First thing I do is I approach an owner and I say, what do you want for this guy? All
So
right.
you don't just straight up send cold offers, just bam, just filling people's inboxes.
On occasion, I will. If I'm real hot on a player and I've got an older guy that I think's going to start to regress, yeah. But like in this league, that was one of my offers. It was Chase Edmonds, Mike Gesicki for Carrion. Carrion's not having a great year, but my God, you're offering me a backup wide receiver, backup running back,
And a tight end that
won't start on any team.
yeah.
And I've got OJ Howard in that league.
Was
Trust
this
me.
when David Johnson was out with a back injury?
Yeah. I mean, this is 2 days ago, I believe. And then another offer was for Carrion, which, by the way, I think, second year in the league. Deion Lewis and Jimmy Graham. Once again, I can't counter either of those. I'm not saying, I guess my problem with it is, if I was going to try to acquire a player, at least let me know that that's not your final offer, right? Can we build something around this?
I mean, typically the first offer is not going to be the best offer or the final offer. There's usually something to work with. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, where do you go with that from there?
Yeah.
Like,
And in his defense, it is you, so I generally lowball the hell out of you.
And I understand that. But think about the mode that you're in, the mode that the other owner's in. Kind of look at their team, see what their needs are.
well, he saw you had OJ Howard, so boom, Jimmy Graham.
Oh yeah, there's a hell of an upgrade. But and another thing, kind of figure out what mode you're in. Do you want to win now? I mean, if I'm in a win now mode and I'm approaching one of the cellar dwellers in my league, I'm coming with picks. I'll give you a replacement level guy, right? Someone a little bit worse than what you got. But I'll toss in, starter. I'll start with the third or second. Depends on what you've got. I mean, what was your offer, Lambert, for for Saquon Barkley?
Oh, I'm not even sure.
It was 2 seconds.
It was pretty rough. Yeah.
It was.
I can't even remember who the player was.
It was bad. I cannot remember who it was, but it was like two.
I mean, he is injured.
He didn't even offer you a running back though. It was a wide receiver.
It may have been. Like I said, I can't.
It was like and I'm not knocking this guy, but like a Preston Williams level wide receiver, because you're like, what? No,
Oh, man,
it was Marquise Goodwin.
I really like Preston Williams.
It was Marquise Goodwin in 2 seconds, and you got to give. My point is, if you want to start, if you want to get into trade talks with someone, you can't just make an offensively bad offer.
Yeah,
because
that'll kill trade talks. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, once again, look at what I need as an owner. I want someone to say, all right, I notice you're struggling at tight end, so I'm going to give you a better tight end than you have, not an equal tight end. Right. I don't need depth. I need a better player.
Yeah.
Let me upgrade at a position, because you're obviously trying to get my player to upgrade a position for you. And then, the other one is, if you're looking for, a tight end and you're a contender, dude, come off your picks. Running back, come off your picks. Because if you're trying to win now, the cellar dweller is not going to get any better by getting 2 mid-tier players for a stud. They've got to have something to kind of bank on next year. So, anyhow, I digress. I'll get off my high horse with the trade etiquette. But you guys have anything you'd like to add before we get rolling?
No, I believe you covered it.
I believe you've spoken for everyone.
As I normally do. I apologize. I'm sometimes long-winded. It's been 2 weeks since I've been on the show.
Yeah, how was the vacation?
It was excellent, but nobody in fantasy football land gives one flying crap about that.
That's not true.
Just you.
I would say you look tan, but you don't.
You're
Did you even go in the sun?
Yeah.
Stay in the hotel?
I look a different shade of red this year.
You just look a little angrier.
So anyhow, let's start off with our starts and sits. We're going to go ahead and hit the starts. Start over at quarterback. Lambert, who you got to start at quarterback this week?
I know you're not going to like it, but I got Kyler Murray
Boo!
has a start. I got Murray over there. The Falcons' defense, it's just been bad. He also had 93 yards rushing and a score last week, so I feel like his legs will put him, up there, have a nice floor.
Yep.
But I also think with this Falcons defense, I think he could put up some good points this week.
There's a
Yeah, I
reason
agree.
they're 1-4.
I had Kyler on there also. The over-under is 51.5 right now. He's at 189 rushing yards last 3 weeks. It should be a back-and-forth game. I mean, it's a pretty close spread. I think the Falcons are favored by 3. I love Kyler this week.
My start of the week is going to be Case Keenum. It looks like he's ready to come back and play. If you look at his stat line, week 1, he put up 3 touchdowns and 380 yards against the Eagles. I know the Dem Boys have lost 2 in a row, I believe, but the Cowboys defense is legit. He still put up 27 points. He threw 2 touchdowns that game. Played the Bears, obviously a great defense. Put up 330 and 2 touchdowns in that game. Sacked a couple times. Probably had a couple fumbles because he's three interceptions as well in that game. I mean, he struggled, but against good teams, he's put up decent statistics. Now he plays the lowly Dolphins, the Dolphins who turned Lamar Jackson into the best quarterback in the league. I mean, what do you guys think about Keenum this week? I feel like his value on DFS is going to be through the roof.
McLaurin's healthy again. I'm pretty sure they're going to run AP more, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what Callahan came out and said. They're going
Right.
to try to run the ball more. But, yeah, I like Keenum this week.
Okay. So moving on to running back.
I'd like to
Oh, I'm sorry. You said something.
kind of I added to Kyler.
Okay.
My favorite
My
quarterback.
bad. I thought he was your start.
Well, I mean, I got multiple down here, but I like Cousins this week.
I got him pulling in arms over there. I got 5 starters.
Hey, just let me talk.
Yeah, I like Cousins against the Eagles this week. They're at home, and Eagles got one of the best run Ds in the league. I don't think they're going to stop Dalvin Cook by any means, but Dalvin's probably going to get his more through the air this week. But I like Cousins. He looked good last week
Agreed.
against the Giants, but he looked good on the road. Coming back home, I think they're going to continue to throw the ball a little bit, and I think that's how they win that game this
Well, I
week.
think a lot of people are getting frustrated with how that offense is running.
Yeah, I mean, and Thielen and Diggs have both spoken
Well,
out.
Diggs especially.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kirk Cousins has one of the best, skill
Agents?
position.
Oh,
Play.
sorry.
Yes, that too. One of the best skill position groups around him. I mean, 2 absolute stud wide receivers. Apparently, that he doesn't like to use very often.
well, and he's got 2 good tight ends, and Rudolph and Irv Smith
Irv
Jr.
Smith,
Yep.
yeah.
And you've got Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison. That offense should be.
And the
running.
offensive line's pretty good
I was going
too.
to say, and a
so.
great offensive line.
I don't understand how they're not doing better.
But that's the thing.
Fantasy
They are.
yeah, the team is doing well, but fantasy wise, I would expect more points out of Thielen and Diggs. Well, and Cousins for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just mind blown with the way Kirk Cousins has performed this year.
I love him, especially on DK this week at 5,200. So
Cheap play.
Yeah.
Cheap play. So you done? Can I
yeah.
talk now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
I had
So
my 2 minutes.
all right, thank you. You can go ahead and leave now. Lambert, get
I
your.
do need a drink.
Okay, Lambert, running backs. Who do you got starting a running back this week?
A guy you spoke on earlier who's not having a great year, James Conner. I'm going to plug him in this week. You got Jalen Samuels. He's out. And the Chargers got eaten up last week by Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. So I'm running James Conner this week. for
Connor
sure.
is a bell cow. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Connor's just been. Such a disappointment this year, though.
From where you expected him to be. I mean, last year he was a monster.
He
and
was-
then this year he's not looked
I would say he was like running back 4 last year.
just a shell of his former self.
My only concern with Connor this week is Pittsburgh starting the rookie third stringer.
Oh,
Devlin Hodges.
Yeah.
That's my only concern with their, possibly stack the box, make
him throw.
Hodges, throw. So, but I mean, Connor can have 8 to 10 catches. You never know, so he'd still be good.
The one thing you can kind of bank on with Connor this week is he's not losing anything to anybody else. I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
What,
I mean
could be Benny Snell.
Benny Snell.
Yeah.
So
a couple goal line carries of Benny Snell maybe, but
yeah, I mean this.
do you think Benny Snell might be a sneaky play though?
I'm
Something
not
cheap on DFS maybe.
I'm not playing him.
Okay, I'm just saying if you're looking for someone who's
They're a Sunday night game anyway, so yeah, if you want to plug them into the He's probably $200 on the showdown lineup. So yeah, throw him in there if you want to.
He's got to be cheap.
Yeah,
he's got to be
probably
cheap.
Low, yeah.
My start this week's going to be. I'm sorry, it's on you, Hux. My bad.
Oh, you could have went. My favorite start this week is Le'Veon, and he's going to be. If you look at projection ownership on DraftKings, he's one of the highest owned. Actually, he is projected to be the highest owned running back this week. But at 6,800, Darnold's back. Dallas allows the second most receptions to running backs, and they're also allowing 4.59 yards per carry off this year. And just Le'Veon is that offense, and I think at home, I think Darnold's gonna rely on him.
Don't hate it. Obviously, the biggest issue I have, I mean, is Darnold back? Is he guaranteed to start?
Yep.
Okay. I was gonna say if Luke Falk's the starter, like, you just might as well just chalk up the entire Jets team as
Le'Veon's still been putting up numbers.
He's been okay. He's not been good. You know what I mean? He's been a mid-tier guy. I mean, he's back in top 10.
Yeah.
You know, so that was my concern. I didn't realize Darnold was fully back.
He's been cleared.
Excellent. I'm going to go with Mark Ingram this week. More than anything, it's because Cincinnati has allowed 9 touchdowns to running backs so far this year. Ingram obviously gets all the goal line work. I mean, he's already got 6 touchdowns so far this season, and I'm loving me some Mark Ingram. I think absolutely runs all over Cincinnati. I mean, if everyone else has, why the heck couldn't he?
I like.
You know
Mark
what I mean?
This week.
I mean, very realistically, my projection for Mark Ingram is 125 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, what's his price on?
He's 6,600, which is a little expensive just for a guy that doesn't really catch the ball. So he really is touchdown dependent. But I expect I could definitely see 2 touchdowns this week.
I mean, and for the price, what's near him price wise?
Derrick Henry, Le'Veon 6,800.
Okay.
Derrick Henry 6,100. Fournette's right in that area. 60. I think Fournette's 6,700.
I do have a second one, not terribly high on him, but AP against Miami. I mean, Miami is basically Cincinnati South right now. I mean, their defense is just an embarrassment. You know, if Washington with Keenum in there can, put 2 or 3 touchdowns up, it makes you wonder if Miami can score 3 touchdowns in a game. You know what I mean? So that could lead to a lot of Adrian Peterson time. AP could, I'm not saying that you've got to rush him into your lineup because I believe he only has something ridiculous like 108 yards on the season. I mean, he's not been good, but Miami is that bad. So, I mean, if you kind of in a pinch.
I kind of like Aaron Jones this week too, just against Detroit. They're a little suspect against the run.
Oh, the number 4 running back. What an interesting play, Lambert. I'm just joking.
Thanks, guy.
I'm just joking.
I like Derrick Henry against the Broncos this week. Titans, both their wins have come on the road. They're playing at Denver, and Denver just allowed a couple 100 yards to Fournette a couple weeks ago. Josh Jacobs had over 100 yards on him. Henry's going to get 20-plus touches. Yeah, I really like Derrick Henry this week.
He'll eat.
I'm glad you brought up Josh Jacobs. Of course I am. So, it makes you wonder, though, is Josh Jacobs just that good? I'm not trying to say he's matchup proof, but he had one game that had 44 yards, but after that, his lowest game of the season was 79 yards rushing. And that's at the Colts, who have been better than expected. 26 for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Bears. The Bears that allowed 2 touchdowns to running backs last year. Period.
You think that was a trap game for the Bears?
Well, I mean, both of them were traveling to London, right?
Well,
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got Oakland losing another 2 hours versus what the Bears were. I mean, it wasn't. Obviously, those international games are weird because it's such a jet lag, different, way different time zone on the other side of the world. And our boy Rich Lavalley, he's a contributor to the show. He helps us with some of our stats. He's a big Raiders fan. He got to go to the game. I was pretty happy for him about that. And then, like you said, with the Broncos, I mean, Jacobs rolled them up for 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then add another 28 on the ground or in the air there. Yeah. I'm starting to get your Josh Jacobs shares. He's starting to look like he can carry the full load.
Well, I mean,
that was the
and that's
question.
that's the thing with him. He gets all the work.
Yeah.
So I mean, that
But he's productive with it.
yeah, no, he is, and he's been more involved the last 2 weeks in the pass game too.
So, yeah, I mean, I will say, because he's typically pretty cheap on DraftKings, I've noticed. Like, dirt cheap, $4,000, $4,500 play. Like, I love plugging him into lineups because he's so
that
cheap.
price will go up. It'll get up there in probably the low sixes if he continues to get the production he's at right now.
So, and of course, my Raiders are a flukish 3-2 right now.
If we're done talking about the Raiders, my start for wide receiver, I'm going to go ahead and plug DJ Moore in just because I think it's going to be a shootout this week. And he played well last week. He had 8 targets, put up a decent amount of points. But this week, like I said, I think it's going to be a shootout, and they're going to have to keep going to him.
Okay. You don't have any love for Curtis Samuel then?
No. Sorry, Arms. You probably should have started Golden Tate.
Should have started Golden Tate. Instead, I'm relying on Curtis Samuel to get like
Hey,
a random rushing touchdown.
Like I said, it could be a shootout, so he could put up some decent points this week.
Serious question. I mean, is Carolina just realizing that they like a passing quarterback now?
I still think it's Cam's job.
Oh yeah, Cam will be. He'll as soon as he's ready, he'll be back in there.
I just wonder if they try to trade him or
I don't see it happening.
I want to see Will Grier in that offense. I
Why?
Just,
Kyle Allen's doing a good
I know,
job.
I know, but I think I just love the way that kid pushed the ball down the field in college. Wide receiver for yourself there, Mr. Huxtable.
I know I'm kind of sticking with the same team here, but Jamison Crowder, Darnold's back. He had 17 targets week 1 with Darnold in there, 14 catches, and he's only 4,000 on DraftKings, but I look to hit Crowder to be relevant again.
Well, he's been eating up a lot of targets too. I mean, even without Darnold there.
So you're not concerned about the matchup, though?
No.
Really? I mean, they've got, what, the Cowboys this week?
Yeah.
Man.
You didn't know Crowder was matchup proof.
Yeah,
He's like D. Hopkins.
I just think the targets are going to be there. I don't think he's going to have like a monster game, and I guess I'm gearing this more towards a cheap value play on DraftKings, but with bye weeks, I wouldn't mind plugging him in as my wide receiver 3 this week.
I was going to say possibly someone you pick up on waiver wires in a 12 to 14 team league, and
Possibly, yeah.
and then of course probably a cheap trade option. Someone shouldn't be asking for much more than a 4th rounder, 3rd or 4th rounder for Crowder to begin with. So I like it. My wide receiver for this week, Scary Terry. Back fully healthy. I mean, I know Terry McLaurin's put up some good games whenever he is, healthy. After week 2 or 3, that's chalk play Arms. But I mean,
how good? Sorry to interrupt, but how good are we? You've recommended 2 Redskins. I've recommended 2 Jets. Should anybody even be listening to us?
at the end, I said I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, once you looked at the top 10 wide receivers, I'm like,
just throwing darts at this point.
Yeah, I mean, hell, Gardner Minshew's a top 15 quarterback. Why the heck not? We all saw that coming.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at his mustache, it would have told you.
Yeah, dude, I'm sorry. I'm not a Jaguars fan, but I am absolutely a Gardner Minshew fan.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
Foles get that job back when he's healthy?
Why should he?
I don't know.
That'd be tough. Oh, man, it'd be so tough.
Absolutely serious question.
I mean, I guess it just depends on how they're doing when he's ready.
Yeah.
I just don't see how. I'll be honest with you. I don't see how he does. I don't. I love what Minshew's done so far on the season. I mean, yeah, they're only 2-3, but they're also missing their top corner. Jalen Ramsey's hurt.
Yeah.
And
he's doubtful again this week.
Oh, of course he's doubtful. He doesn't want to play for the Jaguars anymore. Infuriating. But we're talking about the Redskins, who are once again playing the Cincinnati South. This is the same team that allowed like 175 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns to Marquise Brown to Hollywood week 1. And Terry McLaurin plays a similar role as what Marquise Brown does. Very fast, quick, shifty, good hands. I mean, get him in space and he's going to do something. Miami's defense is just, it's just bad. There's no other way of saying it. There's no polite way of saying it. They're horrid. Like, they've got to do something about it. I mean, you got to start from it's tear down, rebuild, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, they look to be low for years, unfortunately. So I do have a second one. Do either of you guys have a second start?
Yeah, I got a second one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I like D.D. Westbrook this week. The Saints allow the third most points per game to the slot wide receiver. P.J. Williams is not very good. I think he's going to be more of the, and he's averaged over eight targets a game the last 3 weeks. So I think D.D.'s going to have a big game this week.
Man, I'm just you got to wonder who shadowed him though, right? So who goes on D.D.? Is it, if Marshawn Lattimore's on D.D., I don't like it.
No, well, he plays in the slot, so it should be P.J. Williams.
Touche. Valid point. I just know that Marshawn, shut down Mike Evans last week, and it tore me up in like freaking 3 leagues. So, DraftKings lineups, everything. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
He was the number 1 wide receiver in football last year at halftime of his game. Like, that was insane. I also have Preston Williams, and that I may have stole this a little bit from you, Hux. And this comes more than anything. Just Washington's bad. Washington's defense is just not good. Preston Williams has an opportunity to, he's the best receiver on the team. I mean, just all there is to it. He's going to get the bulk majority of their targets this week, and he can do the most with it. So I like me some Preston Williams.
Yeah, me too.
Lambo, tight ends.
Everybody. Tight end. I really wanted to say Austin Hooper here.
I've got him written down, but
Just
I don't know
because
if I
I
can say it out
know
loud.
your hatred for Austin Hooper, but he is. I mean, he's the tight end 1, so that's an easy play. But I will say Disley. I mean, he's still a top 5 guy, but Cleveland's just been bad against tight ends this year, so I feel like Disley's going to be a solid play.
I know that Hooper is TE 101, but the matchup is amazing. I mean, Arizona's horrid against tight end.
Absolutely.
They've allowed more than a touchdown a game on average. I mean, they've allowed right up there, top 2 or 3 in receptions. Austin Hooper is spend the money in DFS to get him. He's going. I hate Austin Hooper. I mean, I've been pretty clear about this, but Austin Hooper probably outperforms Travis Kelce this week.
I don't even know how he's getting the targets when you've got Julio and Ridley.
They're not targeting Ridley.
And Sanu.
I get that, but I mean, they have a ton of weapons, but they're just feeding it to Hooper.
And it appears that that is what everybody's going to do on DraftKings this week is play Austin Hooper. He's projected at almost 32% ownership this week, which is double the second guy, which is Kittle.
He honestly though he should be. I mean, we've got the bet going with the Dynasty Rewind, Bauer and Price and Shevin, but man, Hooper's having a great year, and this week isn't going to be the one that slows him down.
No.
He's just such a prime matchup for him, which is crazy. But Austin Hooper looks to probably can stretch out his TE 101 lead. Infuriating. I've also got Greg Olsen as a start, and that's just more than anything. The Buccaneers, they've allowed 7+ receptions per game to the tight end, and they've allowed more than a touchdown per game to the tight end. I mean, Olsen will eat him live. So, anyhow. Moving on to
my favorite
about
tight
Hux?
ends is Zach Ertz, but that's just he's one of the only options I like on Philly this week. But the Vikings have actually allowed the tight ends to basically the only thing they've been bad against is the tight ends. Waller did good against them. I think Ingram.
because Waller's a stud.
Well, I'm just saying that a top tier tight end they've produced against the Vikings, and I think Ertz is going to be the best one they've played this year, and he he's going to be a focal point for wins.
Okay. I mean, to go
As he should
I was
be.
going to say, to go into the season, we look at Ertz and you say he's tight end 2 or 3.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, if you love, depends on how much you love your George Kittle, but obviously, you know, most people had, excuse me, Kelsey is number 1. So, yeah. Let's see, I'm trying to look up that stat for Minnesota. Minnesota has, here's an interesting one, though. They haven't allowed a touchdown to a tight end.
That is interesting.
So, I mean, they've allowed some yards, 293 yards so far to the tight end, but not a touchdown. Most of my statistics, I will say, I use ProFootballReference.com. So, I mean, if I'm wrong, I apologize. It's their fault. So, moving on to sits. Got a sit of the week quarterback, guys?
Yeah, I'm going to sit Baker. I'm basically sitting Baker until he can start to put up some points. I know the offensive line's garbage. We've hit on that. But I can't trust him, so I'm not going to play him.
No, I mean, what else can you say? And until further notice, you kind of have to sit Baker.
Yeah, that performance on Monday night was embarrassing.
Well, and you paid quite a bit to get him.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he was a fourth rounder.
I think he was a fifth
maybe.
for the most part.
There's
but
just too much talent there for them to be putting up numbers.
Exactly.
The lack of numbers.
Yep.
it's a lot of people had Baker as either quarterback 2, 3, 4, or 5. Like that was the range that Baker Mayfield was getting drafted in to put up the rookie season that he had. I mean, once again, he broke the single season touchdown record. I mean, the guys who held it previously were Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson. Now we've got Baker Mayfield, he's taking a slide. I do think his talent will eventually prevail, but I'm with you, Lambert. You got to sit him until.
Right.
I mean, is it crazy to say? You sit Baker Mayfield because now Gardner Minshew's a better option. Like legitimately every week, Gardner Minshew's a better option. I mean, Case Keenum is a better option than Baker Mayfield right now. Think about that. I mean, that makes you sick to say it out loud, doesn't it? How about yourself, Hux? Quarterback sit?
I know I said I liked Ertz, but I don't like Wentz this week. Vikings got a good pass defense. Unless, Ertz just absolutely goes off and, all his stats go to, Wentz's stats all to Ertz.
Danielle Hunter's your top defensive end, too. I mean, he's your number one defensive end.
Yeah, he's going to get some pressure.
They're going to eat him.
The Vikings have allowed the fourth fewest yards. They only have applied T total of 20 points. I just like the Vikings this week to keep him contained.
By the way, I'm going to scoot back to tight end real quick. We've got Talia. We talk about Talia a lot. Tight end landscape's atrocious. This year, the tight end landscape's pretty darn respectable.
It's looking better.
I mean, you have 10 guys. I mean, you include Hunter Henry. But you got 10 guys averaging 10 points a game. TJ Hawkinson's averaging 9.9, and Delaney Walker's averaging 9.4. I mean, but Hooper, Ingram, Kelsey, Mark Andrews, and Disley and Kittle, Darren Waller, all averaging over 15 points a game. Like, the tight ends have shown out this year. I mean, hell, Disley, your touchdown leader with 4 touchdowns. I don't think many people saw that coming. I mean, in the game or 2 games he played last year, I know he got hurt pretty early in the season. He looked great, but I didn't expect him to, be a top 5 tight end so at this point in the season.
Yeah, he's really looked good. Russell Wilson's got, the pass game pretty much goes Disley and Lockett. That's about it. And I saw the catch rate between them two is like 85%. It's just.
Old Lockett's making Barker eat a little bit of crow, isn't he? He's not great.
Russell Wilson's found his trust in Lockett, and he's going to feed the guy.
He's very.
Well, DK's had.
Metcalf. He's been okay.
I mean,
still not a fan. He's been okay.
Lockett's kind of like he's Doug Baldwin.
He's the new Doug Baldwin.
I mean, you don't have to be the best athlete on the field to be the first target at wide receiver, and that's insanity to me. But my quarterback sit this week is going to be Jared Goff. I just don't like the matchup. I'm avoiding him at all costs in DFS. I feel like Goff's just got an egg waiting to happen. And he's not been performing where you expect him to perform thus far this year. So I'm going to stay away from Jared Goff this week. I just, once again, I guess, points per game, where is he at? He's quarterback 14. And this week, playing against Atlanta, I know they're not great, but
49ers.
What? Oh, wait, I'm looking at why has it got week 7 on there? I don't know what the heck that's about, but apologies for that. But the 49ers, that's the reason the big reason I had him at sit. I think the 49ers have only allowed like 1 air touchdown this year.
I think you were saying that earlier.
Yeah,
there was some stat line like that.
They've allowed 1 touchdown to the tight end. I don't think they've allowed a a touchdown to a wide receiver this year. My computer's having a little bit of trouble loading statistics right now, but 49ers defense looks absolutely terrifying right now. So, yeah, I'm going to stay away from. Let's see. I apologize. They've allowed 4, but it's not been a ton of yards. So, anyhow, moving on to running back. Who you got a running back for a sit? Lambert?
I'm going to go ahead and sit Phillip Lindsay. I know he had a good week last week, but Tennessee's defense is just too good. I think it's going to be a slow game. I think it's going to be low scoring. And so I don't look for him to get a whole lot of fantasy points this week.
Yeah, I had the Denver running backs written down also, but I'm gonna go with Joe Mixon. Kind of talked about him at the beginning of the show, but it's just I'm not gonna play the guy until. I mean, they're gonna be playing from behind. I mean, he could get some catches, but I don't look for him to do much.
So you're kind of taking the Baker Mayfield approach?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I guess it's not quite because I guess it just depends on who they're playing. Because if they have a good matchup or expected,
is there
they're at home?
Very realistic. Is there a good matchup for him? Like, do they play Miami? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do. It's
Do
late
they?
in the year, week 16, I believe.
So I mean,
so they're playing.
There's
for
some
Tua.
teams out there.
So yeah, it's a tank battle.
I mean, I'm sorry, but at this point, if you can get value out of Joe Mixon, get it. I'm in a league that's a 4-player keeper at the end of the season. I had Mixon, and I traded him. So basically, you start in the 5th round with your draft. I traded him for a 6th rounder, so a de facto 7th rounder, because he. Long story short, I couldn't get any value out of anyone else. Nobody else wanted to trade a draft pick. So I ended up with, kind of a 1st rounder and then 2 2nd rounders. Team's performing well in that league. I'm glad I moved him because I look like a freaking genius for that one. So, my sit this week is going to be I don't care who plays for the Rams, who starts. The 49ers have yet to allow a touchdown on the ground.
That seems insane.
They've yet to allow a touchdown to a running back in the air. The 49ers defense looks legit. So, I mean, a total of 267 yards allowed on the ground. Believe that's tops in the NFL. If not, it's top 2. Guys, in 4 games, they haven't allowed 300 yards. No touchdowns. Only 17 receptions to running backs for a total of 112 yards. I'm sorry, but I know if you have Todd Gurley, you paid a 1st rounder for him. I know he's looking doubtful, but if he somehow suits up, steer away. Absolutely avoid at all cost every running back for the Rams in DFS.
I get your reasoning behind your 2 Rams sits, but I'm looking at this game and the over/under is 50.5, which is 3rd highest this week. Somebody's got to score. I mean, they're not going to.
Cup. It's just.
I mean, it's either going to be golf in the air or, Malcolm Brown's going to have 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Darrell Henderson.
Or it's going to come somewhere. They're favored. They're at home. I'm just saying.
I just feel like this is a disappointing week. I feel like there's going to be yards. I'm not saying that there's not going to be a ton of yards in the air for Jared Goff, but I just don't see the touchdowns coming, man. Like, it's just, for me, it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry.
I mean, obviously the
Niners
just because the total's projected at 50 doesn't mean it's going to happen. But I mean, if you're a betting man,
I am a betting
man. If I was you, I'd go place a bet on that under then, because I mean the Niners aren't going to put up.
Yeah, Garoppolo's not putting up.
They're not going to put up 30 to 40 points to cover this point spread here.
One thing I will say about San Fran is their schedule so far was the Buccaneers, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. So
that's probably why their numbers look so good.
That could have something to do with it. But if we look at the running backs, Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones combined, that's okay. Joe Mixon's a good running back. He's just in a bad situation. James Conner. James Conner did nothing against him as far as, getting in the end zone. And then Nick Chubb. there was yards, but he didn't get in the end zone. You're not going to win in DFS without touchdowns. No doubt about it. So I just can't play him. I mean, if you're playing in your home league or, standard 6 team, you got to play whichever. Odds are if you had Gurley and you've got Malcolm Brown, or Henderson or whoever is going to end up suiting up as a starter, you've got to play him. But I'm steering away in DFS. Never sit your studs in your regular leagues.
Well, that was something I was going to touch on. I mean, you're always going to start your studs just for the fact that you paid so much for them, and there's that chance that they're going to have big weeks anyway.
Oh, yeah. So. I mean, superstars can show out against anybody. I mean, stars perform. But for the price, there's better options. So
at wide receiver this week, I'm going to go ahead and sit Alshon. Hux, you've talked at length about the Eagles' struggles this week. Plus, he's going to have Xavier Rhodes in his hip pocket, so I don't like that matchup at all. So I'm sitting Alshon for sure.
Mr. Hux?
I'll add to your Rams here. I'm going to sit Brandon Cooks, and I believe you mentioned the stat of the 49ers of their not allowing the deep ball.
You talked about that pre-show, actually.
Okay, yeah, they've 2 completions that have traveled over 20 yards. So I'd sit Cooks. Plus, he's coming off the concussion. Have they said if he's going to play, or is it a game time decision?
He practiced the other day.
Has he been cleared from the concussion, though, yet?
That was the last step that he had to get through, and
Okay.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay, so, I mean, either way, I'd sit him. I love, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods this week, but I'm a sit Cooks.
Cooks is ready to go.
Okay, well.
In value-wise on DraftKings, you've got Cooks at 5,400 and you got Robert Woods at 5,600.
I love it.
Kupp,
I love Woods at 5,600.
Kupp obviously way up the list. He's a 71.
Yep.
So, as far as wide receiver for me, my sit's going to be DJ Chark. Listen, if you've got him as your wide receiver 3, you still have to play him, right? Because, as of right now, realistically, if you have DJ Chark as your wide receiver 3, you're probably just ecstatic you have, because you had a flyer at the other wide receiver 3 spot. But if Marshawn Lattimore can stop Mike Evans, hold him to 0 points, I love Baby Chark, but he's not Mike Evans. He does entirely different things. And I know you're about to push back on me a little bit, but
I mean, not a little bit. The only thing I got actually in favor of Chark is that for Tampa Bay, they have other weapons like Godwin, O.J. Howard, which they don't use for whatever reason.
that's insanity.
And
man.
but Minshew's, it seems like he really likes DJ Chark. And I mentioned D.D. Westbrook. I think them too. I think he's going to get his target. I think Evans only had 3 targets last week, so they just kind of went away from him. I think you could see Minshew force the ball to Chark this week.
Possibly. And, he's got the best arm in the league, of course. Gardner Minshew's, he's a legend in his own right. So I love that guy. I know he's not everything that we kind of hype him up to be, or I hype him up to be, but just the dude's attitude. He makes you want to be a Jaguars fan. So let's see. I've got wide receiver. Moving on to tight end.
I've got Delaney Walker. Dude's only had 2 receptions in the last 2 games. He used to be so reliable. I mean, just like the tortoise, he was slow and steady. He always got you a certain amount of points. And just the last 2 games, it's not looked pretty. And I'm going to sit him until he gives me a reason to play him.
I'm going to sit Jason Witten this week. I know Jamal Adams is going to be covering him. He's been covering the tight ends. So, and he's allowed the Jets have allowed the 3rd fewest receiving yards to tight ends this year. So, unless they try to game plan around it and you use Adams against Cooper or Gallup, but I'm sitting with him.
I mean, the Jets have only allowed 11 receptions to the tight end this year.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's pretty impressive. I mean, through 4 games.
you might not be playing Witten anyways, but I'm avoiding him this week.
I've got a just avoid at all costs sit, and I know I've been sticking with this daggone game, but the Rams have not. I don't even care
Just
which
the
tight
whole
end.
team, sit
No,
'em.
serious as a heart attack. Do not play a Rams tight end. like once again, San Francisco 49ers have allowed less than 90 yards on the season. Once again, that is 90 yards on the entire season to the tight end.
Has anyone ever wanted to start a Rams tight end, though?
No, but what I'm getting at is there is definitely something on the waiver wire that'll perform better than a Rams tight end. If you've got like an Everett as your bye, Higbee or whoever the hell they've got now, if you've got him as to cover for a bye week, go to the waiver wire. You're going to find something better. I mean Mo Alley Cox, he might catch a ball this week, but
Everett had a good week last week. I think people will probably look at that recency bias and let's play him.
And Cooks was out for
true.
A good part of that game.
But ththey've still got two very
with Cooks
reliable.
back, they're going to have the more 3 wide receiver sets. Everett will be less involved anyway. So
then I've just got a steer away from in DraftKings. I mean, Travis Kelce's price is almost $2,000 higher than any other tight end. Houston, as a team, has allowed less than 4 receptions, or right around 4 receptions a game, and basically 30 yards a game with no touchdowns to the tight end. I get it. I know Travis Kelce's matchup proof. I know Patrick Mahomes is a special type of quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be some success there. But to pay the extra $2,000 that you've got to pay in DraftKings, I just feel like there's going to be equal value in Austin Hooper or Will Dissly, and you could play up at a different position.
I'm just really surprised that you would say that, given your love for Kelce.
yeah,
Oh, I love Kelce, but I mean, you've got Kittle playing the Rams, which it could be a high scoring game, of course. Arizona is the matchup for Hooper. They've the worst team against tight end this year. Dissly's playing the Browns, and the Browns aren't good against the tight end. I mean, Mark Andrews he's been consistently good. I mean, there's just so many better options. And Mark Andrews is the cheapest of them at $4,800, and Kittle's only $5,200. I mean, your love of Zach Ertz, I know you liked him this week, but he's $5,400. That's $1,600 cheaper than Travis Kelce. I mean, if Kelce gets 100 yards and a touchdown, did he pay his value? I don't see a possibility of it.
I get it. I mean, and in your on DraftKings in your double ups, cash games, head to heads, whatever, play Hooper. I mean, he's pretty much a cash game lock to me. But I mean, if you want to be different, go for somebody a little bit lower ownership, get away from the chalk. Kelce's not a bad play because, I mean, even though he's actually showing as the 4th highest projected ownership.
Kelce
is after Hooper, Kittle, and Gerald Everett. It's projected at 16% ownership right now. So I'm going to take your advice and not play Everett this week.
Oh, thank you.
That's probably a good reason, though.
But after that, it drops off to nothing after that. So Mark Andrews is only projected at 5.5% ownership. So I may lean that way.
How good does he look this year, too?
I might go towards Andrews instead of Kelce if I'm not playing Hooper. So
I mean,
just because of the ownership.
Whenever I look at it, just to take a quick glance, to sit Travis Kelce, you could move up from, let's say, Chris Carson up to Chubb or Leonard Fournette for the value. I mean, whenever you're looking at wide receiver, you get to move up from Tyler Lockett to, Julio Jones and Michael Thomas. You know what I mean? Like the difference in the value there is just insane. So, yeah.
No, I get it.
I've got to stay away from him.
The one issue I have with it, you look at the over-under on that game, and it's 55, and they're at home. They're not going to lose at home again. They're going to put up a bunch of points. Tyreek Hill might play this week, but out of all the tight ends, Kelce's still the most likely one to put up 10 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns.
You're absolutely right.
So that's why I think he's a good tournament play.
So obviously, we're still going back. I'll reiterate, we don't sit our studs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
But-
you're playing Kelce in all your season-long leagues, redraft, dynasty, whatever.
And some of the other players we mentioned, if they're your stud, your starter, obviously you're not going to sit them. But I'm looking at this from a DFS play. It's because, once again, it's not like you can magically acquire Travis Kelce in your home league
You've
without
got
making a
bye
trade.
weeks coming up. I mean, you're getting into the bye week season. So some of these guys, aren't your big name players. So you might as well plug them in and try and get a few points.
Absolutely. So, guys, do you have anything you'd like to add before we sign off, other than Hux's DFS for the week?
No, I don't have a whole lot of. I've covered a lot of my DraftKings plays just over my sit and starts. So
Feel free to go back over them, like with your stacks and
I mean,
whatnot.
if you got anything you want me to talk about with DraftKings?
Lambert, you got anything you'd like to add?
I've got nothing.
Go ahead, tear it up. I'll per usual, I will add some input that's probably worthless.
The two most popular games this week are obviously the Chiefs, Texans, and Atlanta, Arizona are the two, the two highest over-unders, plus, just ownership-wise, they're going to be popular. Kyler's going to be popular. Matt Ryan's going to be popular. And then on the Houston, Kansas City side, Mahomes, you can actually get him at a little bit lower ownership this week. Of course, you're paying the high price of, what is he, 7,500. So, I mean, if you want to play the Chiefs this week, you're going to have to find some value, which opened up with Gurley being doubtful, so you can plug in Malcolm Brown if you want at 4,300. If you want to take a real, shot with Darrell Henderson, I think he's 3,200. Not sure how much he's going to play, but you got to think this is the week he actually gets on the field and contributes a little bit. But I like a Viking stack this week with Cousins. You can go mix and match. I mean, I know Diggs hasn't produced much, but you think he's bound to have one of his breakout weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can go Cousins, Thielen, Diggs, or if you don't want to play Diggs, you can go Cousins, Dalvin, Thielen. Cousins provides that value with 5,200. I like Baltimore. Lamar. I like Lamar by himself. Or if you want to Ingram or Andrews, or just Ingram by himself. I think we talked about him earlier. You did.
Any love for Hollywood?
He's game time decision, so it's really. I guess if he plays, I probably won't have a whole lot of him either way. But if he doesn't play, I kind of like Lamar a little bit more. I think he might run a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's not going to have the ownership as the other guys. So if you want to, get a little bit different, I think I don't have the ownership pulled up. I know I talked about the Jets a little bit. I love Le'Veon Bell on DraftKings with the uses he gets along with Fournette. They're priced roughly the same. But just the volume each of them get at their price, their discounted price compared to the top guys, and they see relatively the same amount of touches. Excuse me.
Stop that.
But yeah, that's about it. I just keep it simple this week, I think.
Don't get too cute. Do you have any extreme value wide receiver plays?
I mean, extreme. I like Preston Williams at 4,100, Crowder at 4,000. We talked about both of them already. Not sure if Didi's priced, but I like him.
Let me ask you about Alden Tate this week. I mean, John Ross goes to an IR, so I mean, that kind of more or less solidifies that guy being able to get on the field. He's got some, they target him. He's not a star.
He's had 6, 6, and 10 the last 3 weeks. The only thing that worries me about him is, does Marlon Humphrey cover him because Boyd plays in the slot, or do they move Humphrey to shadow around with Boyd? That's my only thing. If he's going to be covered by Humphrey, no, I don't like him. And his price is up 1,000 from last week. He's at 4,500, so he's not as cheap this week. I like some other guys around him better. Plus, like I said, I like Taj Boyd this week. He's at 6,300. He's averaging over 10 targets a game. I think he had 14 last week. I do like Taj Boyd this week.
Gotcha.
Tyler Boyd. Whatever the hell his name is.
Taj Boyd, the former quarterback for
Taj
Clemson.
Boyd, Tyler Boyd, whoever the hell.
Probably plays in the CFL right now, that guy?
Yeah, that guy, Taj Boyd.
Okay. I mean, let me ask you, I've got who's provided that Tyreek Hill doesn't play this week? Is it going to be the usher or the used car salesman that leads the Chiefs in receiving this week?
It's Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce, at wide receiver,
No.
excuse me.
And Watkins probably isn't playing. He's doubtful. So it's a toss up. I mean, is this Mecole Hardman's week this week, or is it Pringle? Is that his name?
Brian Pringle. I mean,
Pringle, Demarcus Robinson. Who knows with them?
I mean, it about makes you sick.
Yeah, you really don't know.
Because you're literally just throwing darts at the wall at this point. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe not, maybe.
I mean, you really don't know to play. And it's the same way with the running back situation. Do you play Damian Williams? Do you play LaShawn McCoy? Do you play Darrell Williams? I mean, you can't trust any of them. But, I mean, they're going to score the points. It's just you don't know who it's going to be.
Gotcha.
I mean, with the over and under on 55. I mean, if I was going to do, like I said, Kansas City, Houston, the Houston side probably going to be a little more popular. Mm-hmm. Watson, he's a little bit cheaper. Hopkins, I think he might be the highest projected. Him or Cooper Kupp's the highest projected ownership this week at wide receiver. But, I mean, that side's going to be the more popular side with Fuller and Hopkins and Watson. But
so I'll ask you the same question about Arizona because they do the same thing.
Yeah.
Obviously not a ton.
I love Larry Fitzgerald this week, by the way.
Okay, I was going to say not a ton, nowhere near the overall level of production, but it seems like every week or two you've got one of them that flashes, and apparently this week it's going to be Fitz.
I believe so.
Put it on the board. So
yeah, Atlanta, they just they're not as good. I think it's not as good against the slot guys. I just think he's gonna, and Kirk, he's game time decision. I like him this week if he plays.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is you think Kyler Murray's going to be quarterback number 1. All right.
He was Lambert's, but I had him wrote down. I like Kyler Murray this week.
Makes me ill.
I mean, what's not to like about the guy?
In fact, he's 4'6".
I mean, he's got a great matchup this week. They're at home, over under 51.5. He's going to give you some rushing yards. I mean,
I'm just still not a fan. No, I know he's got a good floor. That's
he's a good fantasy quarterback.
He is. I just don't know if he's a good real life quarterback, and that's what stresses me out about him. So, anything else either guys like to add before we sign off? All right. Once again,
I believe that's it.
All right. Thanks for listening. Please find us on iTunes or whatever podcast player you're at for a rating and review, and of course subscribe. We appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. I always say good night, so I'm out. Good night.
See ya.
See ya.